Hello. So, long time no blog. Last time I blogged was February 1st. So now it's the end of March. So my thing is I try to just make sure I have at least one entry per calendar month. So like I want to stay on top of it. But since the last one was technically February, like, you know, um, well, it's been almost 2 months, so it's been longer than usual. When I last posted, I had just gotten out of the hospital. Um, I guess a lot kind of has been going on. Oh, it's been 2 months. But anyway, usually I type these things up, but just given the amount of stuff that's gone down, not necessarily bad, but the amount of stuff that's occurred, um, if I were to type it up, it would probably take like all day because I type it and I re-edit and then all this stuff. So I'm gonna record this, I'm gonna put it on my blog, and then because I have like pictures and everything, of course, to share with people. So, and then I'm gonna put that in the actual blog entry. So you can click the video, listen to this, which usually I do like blogging, and then sometimes I almost like vlog, but I don't like videos of myself. It stresses me out and distracts from the thing, and my blog is supposed to be anonymous and whatever. So instead, I'm doing like basically a podcast at this point. So anyway, that's this. So that's the intro. So I was at work. Now I work the overnight shift, um, just like at like a residential facility for substance abuse issues. So it's usually pretty quiet, and it's the first job, honestly, I've ever had in my life where you have just a lot of downtime at work. And so, like, I've never had a job where you could just sit down and watch a YouTube video at work and not even think about it. Well, so I was watching a lot of YouTube, and it kind of got a little out of hand, and ironically, it was a YouTube video. Well, something I was watching something, I don't know what. I was doing like hours of YouTube every day, and there was one person who commented like um upsetting things give you like an adrenaline rush, which I guess actually makes your brain more drawn to the thing. So the example, it was kind of an offhanded comment somebody made, and um the example was like when people are doom scrolling, their brain is like addicted to the dopamine that it's weirdly getting by being upset about the state of the world, which I don't totally understand, but um, it actually makes it makes a lot of sense, and it connects, I felt like, this makes sense given my life. And so I was searching something, and then ironically, it was another YouTube video, which I'm not going to like link to because, you know, they are monetized. But anyway, um, the video was like basically, phones and what they do to your brain and all this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good. And it explained why after 8 hours of watching YouTube, I would come home, watch more YouTube, and be stressed out all the time. So I was like, okay, I need to just kind of, figure this out. Now, so, being me, I got an app. Well, first I got a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. I forget how I got to Barnes and Noble. Anyway, I went to Barnes and Noble physically. I love Barnes and Noble. Bought the book. It's called How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price, and brought that home. And I was kind of reading it at work because, I mean, it's kind of weird how much time we have. But anyway, so I'm reading my book. Now, I got through like the first half. The second half is like a day by day thing. And that's been a little problematic because it's like things that it's hard to check off. So they'll be like, oh, just notice how you feel when you're holding your phone. And I'm like, okay, Like, how many times do I do this? How do I know when I'm done? So that part has been a little distracting. I also got an app. So the app, the app was supposed to just make your phone like less appealing. So one thing it did was it could put your phone in black and white. Now, in order to do this, you had to use a USB from a computer, etc., etc. I think it kind of, because I ended up deleting that app because it wasn't really working. But the colors on my phone are still weird, so I have to figure out how to get the software off, because I downloaded it from a computer and I have no idea where it's saved or whatever. So that's, that's for later. But anyway, the app would have probably worked, except like, sometimes you need your phone. And anyway, so maybe I'll try to get like a different one. But I'm also trying to just like, be more mindful, as in the book described, like thinking like, why am I picking up the phone right now? What's my purpose? Whatever. And the thing is, like, there's like a million reasons people use phones. Like, remember, like back in the old days when the first smartphones were coming out, they had like the commercial, like a picture of a guy holding everything that you can have in a phone. So he had like a flashlight and all this camera, stuff like that. And it's true. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with your phone that, otherwise you need a separate item. And so I think at other points in my life, like financially, I was really not in a position, weirdly, to do without the phone, because I didn't have money for other stuff. So, that's where, I'm trying to like shop at the dollar store and whatever else and buy cheaper things. But I have, you want things to be fun. And this is my latest little project, is trying to do less digital stuff. Still going to be blogging, but obviously, it's different. So anyway, so I got stuff. So I got, let me think. I have it written down here, I think. Wait. Okay, found my list. So I got, okay, so all my recipes are on my phone. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to peruse different apps. So all my recipes are on my phone in like a recipe app. So then I was like, well, what am I gonna do for cooking? So I had like a 3-ring binder like in my inventory. So I printed out like a cute picture and then just like printed out the recipes. Put them in little plastic dividers. So that was cheap, but that way, I don't know, it's like the recipe book is in a physical spot. The point I'm trying to do is get my world to be back to 3-dimensional rather than 2-dimensional. So like if I want the cookbook, I walk to the physical geographic location of the cookbook and get the cookbook. So, I don't know. That it's, the issue is I can't be like at work and think, oh, what am I going to cook when I come home? But it's also like, I'm just trying to make the world be, 3-dimensional. So, meds were in a meds app, which I had the hardest time with because, I'd be taking meds and then I'd be like, oh, I should log this. And then I would open up my phone, forget what I was doing. That's a whole problem. So I just got like a paper calendar, like super, super simple, and just mark off on the calendar. It's like a little book, but it's like extreme minimalist. It's like tiny. So do that. Got my grocery list is now magnetic and stuck to the fridge with a pen. I tried to really go all out and replace my Google Calendar with a paper calendar, like a much more involved one than the Med calendar. That's not really probably going to work out. because, first of all, it's hard to mark down. So with Google Calendar, you're doing basically block scheduling, right? And I work the overnight. Most of the calendars do not have the overnight really available because they're assuming you're sleeping. So I wanted a block calendar, but then it's like if I block out work and then it's like I decide to, I'm going to work that day. You can't move things around and change things, and my schedule is always changing. So we're back with Google Calendar for that. And definitely not giving up Google Sheets, at least right now, because I use that for everything, especially so my med list is on a Google Sheet. There's just no other really good way to do that because you can print it out, but with the Google Sheet, it's like I can sort them alphabetically, I can sort them in Planner, not in Planner, I can sort which ones need refills. Now listen, I know I take a lot of meds, but the point is, it's a lot easier to just have a spreadsheet and you can sort them by whatever, all the morning meds, whatever. Yeah, because I've got like a lot going on there. So that's not, and like, budgeting, I have an app that like, it's the budget calendar. It tells you how much money you're going to have on any given day rather than budget. So anyway, a lot of things, honestly, you really need the supercomputer in your pocket to be able to do things faster and more efficiently. And it's actually good. It's actually a positive, right? I'm just trying to remove things from the supercomputer in my pocket that can be done just as well on paper or better. So that's an aside. So I know I just got through the grocery list and I was like, everything's good. And then I'm like, actually, there's a few exceptions. I didn't really super plan this thing in advance. If I were doing it written down, I would be editing. But you know what? I'm just going to crank this out. Okay, so I got these little tiny like plastic zipper pouches, like 4 inches by 6 inches. I stuck one of those in my bag because, first of all, I'm always trying to save paper receipts. That's been forever, but I figure I'm probably, if I'm going to be not on my phone, I'm going to have a lot more random scraps of paper. So I got a little pouch. I got this cute book. It's called When Did I Last? When Did I Last? ... question mark. And it's like, it's got everything in there, like things that are like regular things you have to do, like clean the microwave, but then it's got like whimsical fun stuff like when did I last plant a seed. So I put some things in there like turtle tank, hygiene, because it's harder for me than it is for most people, so I feel like at least I'm logging that. And again, if I take a bath and then I'm like, oh, I better log this, and I open my phone, I'm not going to log it. I'm going to be doing something else, So, and I found a little paper book in my inventory at home. It's like a pocket journal. So I'm going to try to use that instead of the Notes app. I have a lot of paper books. So I'm going to try to be reading real books, because Kindle, honestly, I don't really read the Kindle because it's too distracting. So, I'm always trying to better myself. And now I have all this free time, so I can read paper books at work. And the watch. Oh my gosh, my wristwatch. Let me tell you, I've been working on this forever, because as a substitute teacher, you can't have your phone, right? But you need to know what time it is at all times, because, if the kids have 7 minutes to do an assignment and their classroom doesn't have a clock, you better have a watch. So I got the cheapest watch on Amazon. Oh my gosh, when you talk about, this was an expensive, convoluted process. So I got the watch, and I wanted like a scrunchy band, because that's the reason I don't wear a watch. I don't like the band on my wrist. I don't know. I don't like it. So I got the watch, I got the band. Well, turns out you need spring bars and a spring bar tool, both of which are extremely cheap. But like, it's just like, I'm on Amazon paying like $6 for a spring bar tool, and then like $2 for like spring bars. It's just like a lot of individual items, and I don't get packages to my house, right? I get them to Staples. So tracking that all down. Anyway, so whatever. So I got all the stuff. Everything was good. But so the Achilles heel was that the watch that I got was crap. I mean, it was the cheapest possible watch. It was definitely less than $10. So anyway, so the watch got twisted. It was like the face of the watch had rotated, but the hand had not. There's no way to fix that. So anyway, I got another watch. And this one, I think my siblings got it for me. I think my sister got it for me for Christmas or something. And it was like, mid-level watch, and everything was good until randomly the little thing that you turn to set the time was gone. And, there's no way you're going to find that. And I don't understand why that fell off. So I got so frustrated. So I spent so much time Googling watches. And finally, it was like, I know I'm doing a digital detox, but stay with me here. So I was trying to find a watch that would look okay. You can change the band on it, but it's not going to break. So like a shock resistant thing. So anyway, so I found one. So I'm also like on a budget, right? So like I can't spend infinite money, but I finally found one. It's a men's watch, but I guess it's like, nice enough that you can't just like change the band because I don't know, they're fancy. So I had to go on eBay, get an adapter. Anyway, so now I have a watch and it's great. The thing, like, it's analog, because I like analog clocks better. But, made it, well, I guess it kind of set itself. It just like the hand started moving. I don't know. I'm trying to avoid screens, obviously. So I got like a regular watch, but that means, you have to push button B 5 times to set the clock. I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. I don't know the difference between a men's watch and a women's watch. Might be like bigger. I don't know. But the watch is good. So took care of a lot of things, cookbook, med calendar, grocery list, plastic zipper pouch. Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm going to finish these up and then I'm going to go back. Okay, so I got the When Did I Last book, pocket journal, paper books, a watch, and portable radio. So YouTube Premium, I forget, it was something like $20 a month. I don't know. But, who wants to do that? Not me. And so I went on Amazon, got a portable radio. That also turned out to be a thing because I found the portable radio, and that was great. But what was the problem? Something was wrong. Oh, I think the issue is that at work, we only, I don't know what the issue is. Maybe, because I don't super know how radio works. Turns out there is like a very small community of people who are very into portable radios that are modern and can be bought on Amazon. Anyway, so I kind of infiltrated this community, like what's going on, but I don't totally know if radio works the same at night. I vaguely remember that it didn't, but I don't know if that's just AM. Anyway, we only get 3 radio stations at night. One is like out of the big city and sometimes works, but usually doesn't. It has like, I don't know if it's NPR or something. And we have a classical music station, which is nice, but it doesn't have a lot of like people talking. And then there's one out of like the local college, university, but they mostly play death metal. And so anyway, I'm there with my little earbuds, but you still, I don't know, and death metal's not really my thing. So anyway, so that's the digital detox. I got a bunch of items, and some of them I already had. Again, trying to make use of that. Oh, a calculator. Oh, man, I forgot to even mention the calculator. So I went to Dollar Tree, got a calculator there for like $1.25. So I'm trying to, again, just like make it so that anything that I don't need a phone to do, I'm not doing with my phone because, you know, um, mm, just trying to like break out of the habit. So there's probably more things. I like lists, so it's annoying me that I can't think of every individual thing that I purchased for the digital detox, but some of it was Dollar Tree anyway. So that's the digital detox, and I'm going to start a new chapter in a second. All right, so that was the digital detox, which is part of why probably I haven't been posting as much. But again, there's, life, I think it's like it could be just that my life has been so chaotic for so long, and I'm always just like full blast trying to solve the emergency all the time. That I mean, I really like things being stable, but I'm just always like hyper vigilant that there's going to be an emergency. And so just like, I feel like, well, what am I super, super working on right now? Like, what has to get done? And it's like, like for example, financially, um, you know, my goal, I want to finish my tattoo, which is almost done. Been working on it for 3 years. It's going to be amazing. It's Lisa Frank. Cover up, the scars of my troubled youth, which fortunately were pretty much all located in the same place. And I really like Lisa Frank. I love office supplies and bright colors. And when I was a little kid, back in the 90s, before things went to shit in the 2000s, back in the 90s, like I would like walk into the school supply section. I was homeschooled, but I liked like learning and, whatever. And there would be all these Lisa Frank office supplies. I loved Lisa Frank. And so now I'm getting her tattoo because it reminds me of when I was, pre 1999, when I was a kid and I had hope. So, it'll be okay. But, just like now, like, I'm in my 30s. I'm always like, going to the doctor, like X, Y, and Z hurts. And I think on some level, you know, like on some level, there's still, you know, like, the 9-year-old is like, well, when do things go back to normal? And it's like, they don't. Like, it's, 25 years later, and there, I'm not going to be able to just like go back in time and pick up where I left off. And so that, I think, it's an ongoing thing. It's like, well, when does life become what I expected it to be when I was 9, because, that was a really, really major trauma in 1999. So anyway, that's an aside. So when I was, when I had my very long 14-month hospitalization, I, I did not keep in touch with anyone else really from there. I mean, some of the roommates were okay. I didn't like super connect, with anybody really, except for this one girl. She's very sweet. She's had a ton of trauma. She's would never hurt another person. She's kind of handled, she had her trauma about the same time I had mine. And, I feel like I get her on some level, that like, you know, there's not very many people who I feel like can understand that specific aspect of like life was okay until it was, about 9 years old, the sky fell in and, now this, that, and the other, and just total isolation and whatever. So I've kept up with her for the past 3 years. And she moved out of state, and then, this, that, and the other. She was at the hospital that we had been at together. We'd overlapped. And so I went to go see her. Now, the sad part is like she's not doing well, and that was really hard. Just to see like, what happened in the last 3 years, where it's like I feel like, I got an intervention and she didn't. So I feel in some ways responsible for her. I don't know how to explain that. Maybe it's like survivor's guilt. Well, she also doesn't want an intervention, so that's a lot of that. So like, it was hard because it's like I felt like, in 2022, like, oh yeah, we're basically cut from the same cloth, and then kind of realizing like, my life, over the past 3 years hasn't been perfect by any stretch, but things are generally moving in a good direction, and for her that's definitely not the case. And so that was hard, but listen, it was like so healing, because like I was like, I better not wear the same t-shirt that I was wearing while I was what do you call it? Probably a patient. While I was a patient living here, because I wore the same t-shirt a lot. Well, so I put on like, not like fancy, but just like, what I would wear to work. And I went out there, and it was just really, really healing to see, so my friend asked for a Dr. Pepper, so they didn't have any like in the vending machine. So I go into the cafeteria, and this guy who worked there, when I was there, like happened to be in the cafeteria, and he looks over at me and he like does a double take. He was like in shock, and it was just really good to see the person and be like, yeah, I have a job, I have an apartment, I have a cat, things are okay. My turtle's good, And so then I went, onto the unit, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the locked unit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of familiar. I never visited a place like that, like a psych unit as a visitor. I was always a patient. So anyway, I get there, and there was a nurse there who I, again, knew. And she had been there for me in some really, really tough times. And, it just felt like closure to be able to go back and be like, I'm okay. And, she said she'd, let some other people know who, I guess, they weren't on that shift, or they moved on. I was like, oh, it just made me so happy that like, like I was able to, I don't know, because I feel like when I left, like everybody wanted me to be okay, but they had no idea whether I was okay, unless they read my blog. But I think some people are worried about like HIPAA and whatever. So it just felt really good to be there in the flesh and just be like, yes, I am okay. Now, I'm not totally okay, but I feel like compared to where I was at when I was there, definitely like things have gone. I mean, the group home sucked, obviously, but like generally things have gone better, I think, than most of us probably would have predicted. So, so that was amazing. So that was good. Visited Emerson. Let me think. Oh, so I visited, and then things were good. After that, there's like some weird bug going around. um, I was like, oh my God, I must be starting menopause, which obviously would be bad, right? Because my goals, financial goals, finish the tattoo and have a baby. But the baby is going to be, because I don't remember if I posted the math, but like basically I need to save up like thousands of dollars. So, it's not happening immediately, but, so, oh, so yeah, it's not happening immediately because, money and, I want to be more stable. Which is too bad. But, so I was worried because this weird bug that's going around, I thought I was starting menopause because I was just like cooking all the time. Now, I guess it turns out that if it's actually menopause, like you don't just get like waves of having a fever. Like your body temperature is not actually elevated, but I didn't know that. I was just Googling it and Google's like, oh, you're having a hot flash. And I'm like, oh shit. Um, and like if you describe it to people, they're like, oh, that's a hot flash. And I'm like, ah. But then I described it to somebody who I'm around frequently who also has been through menopause, and she's like, yeah, I just had that. It's not menopause. It's this weird thing. And it's like I don't usually have a thermometer with me, right? So I'll be doing my thing. Suddenly it's like I'm burning up for like an hour. Um and then it's okay. So then it's like I finally took my temperature while this was going on, and it was like, oh, okay, this explains. And just like insane levels of fatigue. So I thought, oh man, going to visit must have not been as triumphant as I thought, because now I'm like burning up and sleeping all the time. I must be dissociated. Well, turns out I wasn't actually. I mean, I was actually like, apparently this is a thing that like a couple other people who I see in person have been reporting, that just like, yeah, your body, it feels like real major hot flashes and just like outrageous fatigue. So that was rough because it's like, first of all, I was beating myself up like, how, like, why would I, trigger myself, whatever, even though I really felt like the trip to the, the place was healing. And I was like so confused. Well, it's because I wasn't dissociated, I was sick. Anyway, I'll go to work, and it was really hard to stay awake at work because I was sick and I'm on the overnight. I would come home, sleep like until my next shift. And so this went on for like a week. And then it's like, I'm not getting, time during the day for self-care, because like I was asleep the whole time I was home, right? I was barely eating. It was rough. So anyway, that was making work more stressful. Some stuff kind of went down, well, at work. Well, that was later. So let me back up. So before that, I was still trying to do the digital detox, but the thing is, when I was sick, turns out if you're trying to read a book in a dimly lit room, or latch hooking, I've been latch hooking, fun things like that, right? Listen to the radio, whatever. Well, it turns out that doesn't really keep your body awake. As you basically need the blue light on your phone to stay awake. And so, desperate times, right? So I'm there on YouTube again, watching blue light, and this one YouTuber who I really genuinely respect, Lloyd Evans. I've definitely posted his stuff on here before. But he sent out a community post like, hey, send me your story if, I've made a difference. So I did. Now, I wrote it up. Now, it said brief, obviously that's, I didn't send a brief one. But, so even in my brain, I'm like, look, the guy, he's a popular YouTuber. He's going to have 1 million replies, and he's not going to have time to read this. And I kind of recognize that. So he sent back a form letter, which is, kind of fine, because I was really just kind of doing this, I don't know, weirdly, like for my own, processing. So I've probably shared my life story on my blog a few times. Well, I'm going to send, the email that I sent to him, I'll just kind of post because I don't know. I feel like every time I tell my life story, it's not like it's different, but it's like there's different kind of connections that I'm sort of making to figure out what the hell happened. So I'll post that. Now at work, work was discouraging because so I'm working with this kid. She's like 20 years old. And I think in a lot of ways, okay. So the story I give, right, is when I was a kid, I would be roaming the town a lot with my siblings or whatever. But if I ever came across a playground, I would be scared to play on it, and I would be looking around, like, because I was like, okay, is this a playground that's connected to a public school? Because if it was connected to a public school, then, I was like not worthy to be playing on it because I wasn't like a real kid, like all the other kids. I was, and, feeling like not a real person has been an ongoing problem, right? Also, like when I was 16, I needed a worker's permit. So the place that had that was the high school. And so I walked in. I didn't know where the door was, I walk in, I'm immediately in like the cafeteria of a high school, which is loud and chaotic. And I just felt so inadequate, like just so inadequate. Like what? Like this is everybody else's every day. And obviously mom was always trying to drive home that I was lesser anyway. So, but it's like everybody else can handle this all day. And like, I don't know what's going on. And like, what's wrong with me. And so I found like a security guy because, I only knew how to interact with adults. And I'm like, hey, where's the workers permit area? And he like led me over. But I just felt so sad that like I was not able to participate, I guess. Like I was just like, from Mars, and like normal life was terrifying. Like it was just, it sucked. Like that, a normal life that would have been a happy life had been turned into this thing where watching other people live that life was frightening, and I didn't know how to interact, and I didn't know how to exist, and it sucked. But anyway, so that was that. Just constantly feeling like I'm not a real person. I'm not one of the real kids. And so, at work, so with, people, adolescents, it's always been like, I'm trying to kind of work on this, but I've been working on it forever, where it's like, if I'm in charge of a bunch of teenagers, I still on some level feel like they're real people and I'm not a real person. So what right do I have to, tell them what to do? So I've kind of gotten past that, like in a academic setting where like I'm teaching, but like I hadn't really super processed that, like I guess with a peer. And so, this girl's like 20, she's in that age bracket, but she's also, training and whatever. And so I just felt like chronically inadequate with her. And she's almost always, because there's like two people on, she's almost always the one that's on. She's doing training. So I spend a lot of time with her. And, she's got her whole like life story. I don't know what it is because, it's work, right? We don't ask. But thing was, so she just like got to be like, when I went to go talk to her, ask her any kind of question, which of us is doing which checks, whatever, she would like look down and away from me and kind of mumble something that was really short, and she didn't want to answer. So this became an issue because, first of all, if I need to know how to do something that I need to do for my job and she can't tell me because she can't handle talking to me, then I can't do the thing that she wants, and I felt like, when I was 21, I was living with grandma. Um, and, it was painful to talk to her because of a whole bunch of psychological stuff going on, right? Like, I got drafted to move in with grandma. Then the whole family started a rumor that I hated grandma. Then, like, you know, and I just, every time I interacted with her at all, I felt inadequate because my whole family was saying, you're doing a terrible job taking care of grandma. You're so mean. And so, like, when she was around, I would be scared because I'm like, well, what if something I do is going to make grandma feel like I don't care about her enough? And then my whole family's going to be mad. And then I'm a terrible person and whatever. So, and I wasn't able to kind of detach my view of myself from my mother and my mother's sister view of me. So, like, I just felt like, okay, they think I hate grandma. I guess I hate grandma, but, like, I don't understand. I'm trying so hard. So, anyway, that was a whole complicated thing. So, in my brain, it was like, I was 21. If I saw grandma hobbling along with a walker, I felt like it was my fault that she had the walker. And I couldn't really describe that, but definitely my family felt like this. They're like, well, you'll be old someday. And it's like, why are you telling me that? Because, yeah, like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't want this, like, I don't know. They were convinced that there was this animosity that wasn't, I was just, like, scared of, I don't know. I just felt scared and inadequate and, whatever. This has been a lot of my story. So anyway, I'm working with this girl. Now I'm 35, so I feel like, okay, I'm a lot older than she is. And she can't talk to me because she's physically in pain when she has to talk to me. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, maybe she sees me the way I used to see grandma, which is not a fun thing to think. And, that compared with already feeling less than around people who have been through public school. And I'm always terrified at work. This is an ongoing issue. I'm just, work is terrifying. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it's because trauma. It's not because there's actually anything wrong with the job. But anyway, so dealing with this. Now, people, such as, like, my therapist, who is lovely, but she's like, will just, like, remember that, like, you don't have to be scared of her. And I'm like, I don't understand why you think, because, like, obviously I'd been telling myself all the things she's telling me to tell myself this whole time, right? The whole time I'm like, there's no reason to be scared. Well, guess what? That doesn't actually solve anything because thoughts are not the problem, right? I don't actually. So, anyway, just, like, reminding myself that the situation is safe was not helping. It wasn't getting me out of a flight response. And, it's really frustrating because it's like, don't you know, I've been doing that. Your advice is for me to do a thing that I'm already doing, so I cannot just implement your thing because I'm already doing that. Anyway, whatever. So, I was, like, okay, trying to figure it out and trying to be like, okay, I don't have to be scared. If she's rejecting me, I don't need to freak out. Well, guess what? CBT does not work, or at least for me, because, I definitely tried that. And, my thing is, if every time I was around her, she was, like, disgusted, I was pretty much in a freeze response, right? So I'm, like, in the corner, like, frozen. And, if I want to do something that, like, would be great to do at work, show initiative, whatever, I wasn't able to do that because I was frozen in terror, right? And this also makes it very, very hard to initiate a conversation with the kid. Why am I getting this body language off of you, So I was kind of enduring it. And then finally, like, I was just so frustrated. Like, I just need her to, she'd be nice around other people. She'd look them in the eye. She'd talk to them. It was fine. She clearly was treating me like, she just couldn't stand me. I didn't know what I did wrong. And so anyway, finally I have to interact with admin. Admin, I guess, they appreciated the conversation, but they also were like, I guess they didn't know, the first person didn't know what to do. So I'm like, maybe we can set up a meeting, with the girl. And so, I guess, I kind of heard through the grapevine that, my coworker had told people that I ratted her out to admin. So I was trying to, do the professional thing and talk about it with admin rather than with my coworkers or with our coworkers, because, trying to not, poison the waters, whatever. Well, anyway, I was so frustrated because obviously talking to admin, it was like the vice person, or the assistant director. Obviously that totally blew up, right? So finally there's one person at work who, I trusted, and I think she meant very well. I think she's a good human. She was helpful, whatever. But, because I kind of told her, like, this kid will not talk to me. She will not look at me. She clearly hates me. I don't know what to do. I'm just freaking out. I'm not freaking out to the person, but like, this is a lot. I don't even know if I can keep working here, because I can't spend 8 hours a day when the only other person that's awake is, can't deal with my existence, right? Or at least that's the way, the way I was, like if I was, she was always trying to be physically as far away as possible. She was back in the bedroom. I was in the bubble. I was scared to bother her. Anyway, that's not it's not sustainable to be spending 34 hours a week dealing with that. So, the coworker who I told this to was lovely. And then finally, things blew up. Oh, I don't remember how. Anyway, so finally I was actually talking to the director rather than the assistant director. The director, also very sweet lady, soft-spoken, from the South. I think she's just very kind, but, and fair. And so she, she listened to me because I was scared. I'd tell her, like, basically what's going on. I don't know, like, she's 20. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. She can't deal with me, whatever. Or at least every time I talk to her, she won't, so if, like, I need training, she won't talk to me. She won't use the words that I need. Kids like to do short answers, but this was off the top. And, something was clearly off. So anyway, so the boss, finally brings, me and the kid and her all into a conversation, which I guess is mediation. I'd never had to get this through an employer before. So I already felt like, why couldn't I just handle it myself? Anybody else other than me would have been able to handle it themselves, and I had to go and get admin involved. Because what? I'm not like a real I don't know. Like, I felt like, I'm 35. I should not be having this issue. But anyway, there we were. And so the boss asks the coworker, that's the problem. She's like, problem for me. Anyway, she's like, yeah, every time I talk to you, you roll your eyes and huff. And so she felt like this was intentional, and she had chosen to stop talking to me, basically. Silent treatment, I don't know. Anyway, so I was really frustrated because, one, I did not know that there was a moment in which she had consciously chosen to do this, because that would mean she could just stop, right? I thought, like, okay, I'm reminding her of somebody, or, something, whatever, like, she can't talk to me because she's, freaked out by something, but I don't know. But so yeah, apparently she just chose this because she felt like I was intentionally disrespecting her. Now, spoiler, I was not intentionally disrespecting her. I think so eye rolling and huffing were like her primary complaints. So I asked around, like, why does she think I'm rolling my eyes? I have never intentionally rolled my eyes, but I guess people say like when I'm thinking, I look up, so that could be the issue. And obviously, my pattern of breathing is super different from the average person, right? I have PTSD. I don't breathe the same way as other people. Um, and so, maybe if I'm breathing heavily, this comes off as huffing, right? And then I was in a situation, I walked away from the meeting with just no actionable stuff I could do to solve the problem. It's not like, I mean, there was, like she was like, if someone asks for me, can you ask them first if there's something you can do? So I can implement that, right? But most of what she wanted from me was for me to not have mannerisms that I have either as a result of trauma or as a result of not being around other kids growing up or whatever. So I, can't tell her that, right? But like, I just felt like, okay, I can't hold down a job because, if I'm existing in the world, I'm not existing in the same way as other people, right? People can immediately look at me and pick up that something's wrong, and then I can't get training in a job because the other person isn't going to interact with somebody who's, clearly weird but cannot give an explanation for why they're weird, right? I can't tell her, oh yeah, I'm weird because I have PTSD, right? You can't share that at work, but it's not like she thinks, it's not like they are not picking up that something's wrong. And so she was interpreting that as me like being rude. So this was, it's like the thing of like, it's triggering when people think I'm intentionally being rude because, well, basically, I'm the one who knows my thoughts, feelings, and motivations. And there are many times when other people, specifically my mother, want to speak to me authoritatively about my subjective experience as though they know more than I do about that. And I don't like that, right? Nothing was intentional. I get it. I'm not normal. I don't fit in, but that doesn't mean I'm intentionally snubbing. So then it's like if I say it wasn't intentional, what does that do? It invalidates her experience. It causes all these issues. So that, was horrible because it's like, you know, um, uh, it's like it's like I can't prove what's going on for me, and I can't prove I'm not intentionally hurting you. I also felt like, again, I'm not one of the real people. Um, how am I going to have a job at all if I'm like not, you know, not able to function? I'm always running into issues with people who don't like me at work, and then it's because I was, whatever, because of like, kind of irreparable damage to me, that like, might not be my fault, but it's also like I can't change that, right? My mannerisms are what they are. So I was like emotionally destroyed. um I can't change something that I was never doing. I can't change, disrespecting somebody if I was not disrespecting them. If she said, I want you to do this thing at work, then I could do that. But I cannot just like stop disrespecting if I was never disrespecting. So this is the same sort of pattern that I've been in before. I recognize, it's not the same situation, right? It might feel the same. There's a lot of similarities. It doesn't mean it's the exact same situation. But what I did feel like was like, well, what am I going to do in the world if, people can't talk to me because I'm that, blatantly different from everyone. So I called my best friend, and she was lovely. the nice lady who works for the Commonwealth to keep me mentally stable also was very nice. And, I was like complaining, like, I don't know, weirdly complaining about my mother and her extremely strange tendency to set things on fire actually did make me feel better. I don't know. Weirdly, it did. But anyway, so, I just kind of, needed to be around people who felt like I was an okay human being. And of course, the cat thinks I'm fantastic. He's great. He like waits for me at the door and he purrs. He's wonderful. Well, anyway, so between the three of them, kind of got it together. I was really nervous about going back to work. But the people I was working with for the first 2 shifts actually were not the girl with the issue. So the first night, it was this person from a temp agency. She's fine. And then the second night was the person who I get along with very well. And so, that was good. Now, I did finally, the last 2 nights, well, I'm trying to think what nights, how do I put this? So Sunday night into Monday morning and Monday night into Tuesday morning, which it's now Wednesday. So for the last 2 nights that I was there, I was working with the same person. I felt nervous because I felt like she had kind of transitioned from being like refusing to talk to me and grossed out by me to being almost like scared, because basically I ratted her out to the boss and I felt bad about this. And so I felt bad, like, okay, this poor kid. But things actually got to be okay. Like at one point she was telling me something, and I'm like, breathing and whatever. And she kind of turns away and stops talking. So I pause and then I'm like, just so you know, I'm frustrated with the situation and not you. And I think that helped because we caught it in the moment and I was like, okay, the way that I breathe when I'm trying to not have a panic attack could come off that way. And so I think that helped. I mean, things aren't perfect, right? Because, the other issue, I get into a freeze response when I'm scared that someone doesn't like me, which isn't good, right? And you can just be like, oh, I'm going to CBT it. I don't need to freeze when someone doesn't like me because I'm in a safe space now. Well, guess what? Your amygdala doesn't fucking care if you're in a safe space, okay? So that's not going to work. Well, anyway, so the freeze response thing, whatever. But then in the morning, because overnight there's really not much going on at all. And then in the morning, there's 10,000 things, right? You got to check off whether everybody did their chores. You got to be remembering to turn the lights on. You got to be constantly opening the door. Someone calls, you have to open the door. Then someone calls on the phone to check in. You have to log that. And it's like there's a lot of things where it's like I start doing the task. I'll get the phone call, so-and-so is checking in, and then someone needs to come inside because they smoke outside, but then they have to ring the bell to get back in from smoking. So, anyway, I don't know. They can't have a key because, like, they're literally living there, but whatever, I get it. But anyway, so I have to let everybody in when they're buzzing and, like, doing the checks. And I'm, constantly checking in with my coworker to see if she's angry with me for anything because, well, what do you always do at work, see if anybody is mad. Except the clients, they're usually mad. But, trying to make sure your coworker's fine, which takes up a lot of energy. And then also, like, answering the phone, answering the door, making sure the lights get turned on at the right time. You gotta run around and do wake-ups, which wake-ups would be better if people did not get extremely, well, okay, so yeah, they're always angry. Wake up, they can get extra angry because they're there with their children. And it's very difficult to wake up the adult and not the child, generally. I can't, touch them, obviously. I can't shine the flashlight on them. So I have to stand in the doorway and speak to them in a voice that will wake up them, but not their child who is 2 feet away from them, which would be different if it were not for the fact, the child is probably not regularly taking medications such as, methadone and different things that can cause drowsiness, in the morning or during the day or whenever, right? So it's almost impossible to wake up the mom without waking up the kid. But if you wake up, if I call in, I stand in the doorway, I call the person's name, I say good morning, they don't really move. And then it's like, do I stand here? Because, I don't care if they get up, but if they have to get their meds by a certain time or they get in trouble. So I'm trying to be the nice person who wakes them up because otherwise they're going to be mad. I didn't wake them up, they didn't get their meds. So I have to try to wake them up. But then, if I wake them up and they don't say anything, and I go down the hall, and then like 20 minutes later, you woke up my kid this morning. Well, like, okay, I get it, waking, children are in a category where it's like if you do anything to hurt them, you're like a horrible person. At the same time, it's like, look, as much as I appreciate how hard it is to be a parent, like I can't wake you up without waking up your child. And so anyway, so whatever. Do wake ups. People are mad all day, but anyway, so I do all the wake ups. If I'm on meds, I do meds, but if I'm, either way. So usually the other person, well, depending on the day, the other person might be in the other room doing meds. I'm in charge of turning on the lights, waking people up, doing checks, answering the door, answering the phone. And it's not really like hard stuff. It's just that there's so much going on that, like, given that I have no working memory whatsoever, it can be an issue. And people are like, well, just write everything down. And it's like, okay. But then I have to write down, like, I am answering the doorbell, right? Like, you can't remember everything, especially if it's like if someone calls. Like it used to be my last job or a previous job, if someone called, I would tell them, whoever they're calling for, and they would be like, is it a man or a woman? And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't remember, right? Because if I'm not specifically thinking I need to remember X, I don't remember X. Usually I don't remember X anyway, but I can't tell you like 3 seconds after talking to the person. I don't know if it was a man's voice or a woman's voice because I didn't specifically check for that. So anyway, that kind of thing where like working memory is total shit. Um, it's, I'm going a million directions in the morning and I feel like I can't do one thing because, this is pretty much how my whole life goes. I'm frozen because I can't do all the things at the same time and I don't know which thing to do. And if I start doing something, then I'm not doing all the other things. And, usually I'm like, I know there was something else I was supposed to do. I have no idea what it was. I'm going to try to remember what it was. I don't know what it was. And then, like, why didn't you do this? And then it's like, okay, the person's pissed off at me because I'm inadequate because I can't remember to do stuff. And so, anyway, that's going on. So, I feel like less afraid that the coworker hates me now. But so I'm not frozen like all night, but in the morning it can be tough because there's a lot going on, so I can end up feeling frozen. So anyway, I'm gonna, I feel like things are going better with the job. I appreciate my manager. I apologize to the coworker because, I still feel like, why couldn't I just do this by myself? And if I had just talked to her at first, maybe things would have gone better and I wouldn't have had to talk to the boss. Other issue, because I guess, coworker talks to people about me. I feel like it's basically Mean Girls, right? Because I actually did come in from the situation, God gave man the rifle to hide the homosexuals and dinosaurs. Like that actually was me being homeschooled. And so now it's like, we've got competing people fighting and whatever. It's like the stupid movie, right? Anyway, so I get dropped in from like, homeschooling and mental hospitals. And they don't know that. But anyway, so, I told one person who I think handled the situation excellently, although it does seem, the one gripe is that I think she did kind of pass along some of what I was saying. So now, the social dynamic is awful because it's like I'm trying to be friends with this kid, or not friends, but at least like, friendly or amiable or whatever, just like, getting along in a happy and peaceful way, relaxed interactions, And, it's a problem if, like, we're friends again. Well, apparently the whole rest of the community doesn't know that. So they're thinking there's, like, this whole animosity, people taking sides, blah, blah, blah. Well, I never wanted to be part of that at all. And I feel like, I felt like there was nothing I could do. I didn't start the war. But, I should have asked what was going on. And, she probably was reasonable to assume, that I was like a bitch when in fact I'm just weird from trauma, but she couldn't have known that. So anyway, and if I had just been, because, I'd be sitting there like, I just need to ask her, why are you angry? But I wouldn't do it because I'm frozen in a freeze response because I'm whatever. Because CBT doesn't work. So anyway, at work, I feel like things are going okay. It's a little touch and go, but I think things are okay with her. I still have to meet weekly with the boss, who is very nice, but I also feel like, what's wrong with me that, I'm basically having to meet weekly with the boss with a job I just started. Clearly, I'm not doing great. Not doing everything perfectly anyway. It's like they didn't, I'm not actually on an improvement plan, but like that's what it feels like. But I think the main thing is just trying to like be visibly comfortable with the problematic coworker so that everybody else will figure out there's not a fight. Now, my coworker is not always great at telling me when we are in a fight, which is why I didn't figure it out right away and things snowballed. I'm hoping we're not in a fight, and I'm hoping we can fix things socially, let people, so people don't feel like they have to take a side. I don't want people to feel like they have to take a side. I feel like the coworker is a lovely person, and, look, she's 20. She's living with her boyfriend. She's working 2 jobs. She's living a life that would be normal for someone who was like 40. So where are her parents? Obviously there's a story. But, basically, I think she seems very competent for her age, and I think it's not her fault that things happened. It's just like, here we are. So I'm hoping we can get along, and rest of people at work can do that. Okay, I'm gonna pause here and I will be back with the rest. Okay, I'm so discouraged because I just recorded a whole thing and it was, I guess, too long. I don't know. The recorder stopped. So now I'm going to be stopping frequently to save my work. But anyway, so aside from work, kind of a main reason why I have been not working, the main reason I haven't been blogging, I guess, is because I have been trying to work on my book. So the reason I wasn't working on my book earlier was because it's just really emotionally difficult. It's one, all my memories of trauma are fragments, which is why they're on index cards. But like usually that means I don't have to remember everything at the same time. And if I've got everything on index cards and then I'm looking at all the index cards, well, that's emotionally a lot, right? And so I hadn't really been working on it, but I have been, like, anytime something's triggering, write down, painful memory, whatever, put it in the index cards. Well, that means there's a lot of duplicates, right? So I went to my index card collection, and another thing, so I'm working on it now, right? But I need to be able to easily search from wherever I am, whether I already have an index card for a given incident. So like the playground thing, if I want to be like, well, I wonder if I already have that in my list, I need to be able to search. right? So my index cards, the hard copy is the real copy, but I needed a backup, right? So that's plan number one. But going through the index cards, another thing that's been kind of deterring me from working on the project is that some of the index cards were so tattered and just falling apart that it was hard to peruse the index card, right? Because I'm trying to keep things from falling apart. So I divided the cards into the ones that were fine and just needed the PDF backup. And then the other category needed a PDF backup, obviously, but they also needed their hard copy to be converted to a better hard copy. So then the hard copy, the new hard copy, is the real copy. And then the PDF is still a backup. But there's a PDF backup of all of them and a new hard copy for the ones that were tattered, if that makes sense. So you've got the category A, the ones that are fine, category B, the ones that need both a backup and a new hard copy. So, the ones that were fine, I scanned them. It took a while because even though they're only 3x5 index cards, turned out there were 772 of those, right? 772, a lot. Well, anyway, so I scanned those into PDFs, merged the PDFs. Now I have a PDF of, all the regular index cards, which is great, right? Because apparently with AI, you can search these things down. So the other ones was a little harder because they were weird shapes and stuff. So they were more like scraps of paper than even index cards. So I scanned all of them individually. There were 108 of them. So now I got my scan, and I didn't scan them as a PDF. I scanned those as like a JPEG. So upload all of those to Google Photos. Then on Google Photos, anything that was crooked or needed to be rotated or whatever, I had to do that and then crop them into like regular, like into something that could fit onto an index card, right? So once I'd cropped, the actual letters and cut off everything else, then I needed them to be, well, I have an app that does this better than anything I've ever found. Otherwise, it's called Whiteboarder. It's an Android app. But instead of, usually if you say I want these dimensions, it'll crop your thing. Well, I don't want it to crop the thing. So this is Whiteboarder. It just adds white. So instead of taking away from the picture and cropping, it just adds white. So I wanted all my pictures to be 5x9 dimensions because the index cards, 3x5. If you want a 1/4 inch dimension or 1/4 inch margin on each side, then you're taking away 1/2 inch total from the height and the width, which means instead of 3x5, you've got 2.5 by 4.5, which works out to dimensions of 5x9. So I did that. It took a while because I had to send everything to my phone, and then the app only could do like 12 pictures at a time, save them, whatever. Well, now I've got all my pictures with the white border. Oh, and in Google Photos, I had to make sure they were all going the same way. So, like, if they were wider than tall, everything had to go the same because, well, the next step. So I had... So I had my template, which was, like you could put 3 cards, and then this is for the product that has not arrived yet from Amazon. But anyway, so I'm going to print them out on index cards this time rather than gluing paper because that's just easier. So anyway, plan is to print everything out as an index card. And so the index card template had 3 index cards per page. So that part was actually not too hard because then, the cards were already perfectly sized in dimensions. So I could just boom, 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 pop them on the page, resize them 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches, super easy. So that was great. So then I had them saved. Now the next step there for that part, for the backing, for the new hard copy. That part is all set except for actually printing out the cards, which I'll get back to. But they also needed PDF backup, right? Just like all the others. So then I had to convert all that to PDF, which is difficult to do for free, but I figured it out. Had to kind of, convert a couple things here, convert a couple things there. Websites have a lot of limits. Well, anyway, so that's done. And then merged everything. So now the hard copies, well, the ones that were not tattered and are in PDF, and the ones that were tattered, get a new hard copy in PDF, are all merged together into a document, which is saved in several places. And so, if I need to search, did I complain about the time, so-and-so, whatever, now I can search. And the answer honestly probably is yes, I have written that down because I've been doing this for years. So, Anyway, so all the cards are backed up. The only thing left to do now is to print them onto index cards, put them in the thing. But that's a little more complicated because I ordered the product on Amazon. And Amazon was like, oh, it's running really late, but you're the next stop. Well, then after that, I guess Amazon lost communication with the driver, and now it's been like a day. So I don't think it's coming. It's got that, sad note like, well, you can call us for a refund. Well, anyway, so whatever. So I have to go to Staples. I go there a million times. Oh, I go to Staples all the time. Anyway, but I have to get there, which means either paying. This is a problem with not having a car. You either pay for an Uber / Lyft, or if you have a friend, that's great. But can't do that all the time. And there's the option of walking / taking the bus, which is time consuming. Well, I have a million things to do, right? Obviously, Anyway, so that's the whole process. So I have to go to Staples and pick up okay, so I have a lot of things on my list. So, go to Staples, get this stuff. I have a couple other things to pick up there anyway. And of course I have my spiraling to-do list all the time, cook food, whatever. Anyway, I have to figure out how to get to Staples, pick up the stuff, and then do everything else that I have to do in a day. So I am so distracted by having to constantly stop and save. But anyway, so I've got my to-do list for the day. But as far as working on the book, all I need to do is get to Staples, pick up the index cards, print them out, and put them in my thing. Then I will have a working hard copy for everything, and I'll be able to organize them. Which, that, of course, is going to be a huge project, but I think this is just kind of removing one layer. So it was really time consuming, obviously, scanning, 880 things and, a lot of stuff. But I feel like it was worth it because, first of all, you can't really be working with ripped up, terrible cards. And also, I don't know, kind of like mentally got me more into a thing of like, this is really happening, instead of being like, oh, I want to write a book someday, but like, I always end up in the hospital when I try. So anyway, so I think that's good. So the book is definitely going to happen. It will happen. It will definitely take time. And I really wish I had like a writing mentor because so this is weird. The thing, aside from the emotional thing, the thing that kind of holds me back most is like, I don't know if I should be doing a separate Google Doc for every chapter, or if it all goes into one thing. Like, just like physically, the logistics of writing and saving the files is a huge barrier for me. So I wish I had somebody who could be like, oh, this is how I wrote a book on Google Docs, you know. But anyway, so that's just that. But uh yeah, so the book is happening. And I'm getting some, you know, work is going okay. Work is going better than it was. The cat's fine. The turtle needs his tank cleaned, as he usually does, but he's been okay. He's been back in the water, so that's been good. So everything's, you know, kind of fine, you know. Two main goals in my life, as always: finish my book, have a baby, working on it. You know, I was really freaked out when I thought I was going into menopause. And, you know, when my mental health isn't good, I'm like, oh man, I can never have a kid. And then it's just emotionally devastating. But I think we're on the right track and things could be okay from here.